If you want to know what a modern-day ghost town looks like, you don't need to go to Chernobyl or Detroit. Come to New York, where the streets are still lit, but the people who once lived there have vanished. New York currently has more than 92,000 homeless people, more than the entire population of the city of Schenectady. Behind the dazzling lights, behind the bustling sound of car horns, there are empty houses, desolate neighborhoods, and people huddled in tents right in the middle of the snowy winter. From industrial Rochester to frigid Buffalo, from powerful Albany to intellectual Syracuse, each city is becoming empty. Not because of war, not because of natural disasters, but because the homelessness crisis is silently stealing the city. Those who once taught, once drove buses, once nurtured the community, now have to sleep in their cars, under bridges, behind train stations. No one said goodbye. No one saw them off. They just gradually disappeared, one by one. In today's video, we will go through 10 cities of New York to clearly see that a ghost town is not always a place where no one lives, but rather a place where no one can truly live anymore. The first city on this list will show you a paradox, wealthy yet still forgotten. You might not believe that there was once a city called the capital of imaging technology in the world, the birthplace of Kodak, a former American icon. Now it has more tents popping up than convenience stores. At 8 a.m., right in the heart of downtown Rochester, you can walk down 5 blocks without encountering a single local. Not because of the weather or during the holidays, but because this place is turning into a ghost town as the homelessness crisis silently sweeps away the communities that have lived here for decades. The place that was once the headquarters of Kodak, the imaging technology giant, is now a parking lot for tents, where former workers sleep in their cars, burning wood to keep warm with empty paint cans. It's not that they are lazy, it's not that they don't try, but because they fall out of the system, too old to be rehired, too young to receive retirement support, and too invisible for anyone to speak up. Rochester used to be the pride of New York State, a manufacturing hub, abundant jobs, a united community. People once called this place a model of the new American dream. You don't need to be in New York or California to have a stable, meaningful life. But now, that's just a story of the past. Ironically, this city is not the poorest in the United States, but it has the highest rate of hidden homelessness in the Northeast. People living secretly in abandoned factories, in trucks parked behind gas stations, in sealed warehouses. The authorities had to close the temporary shelters due to a lack of budget. The small shops are putting up signs for sale. Schools are losing students. The medical center is overwhelmed because no one has insurance. A middle-aged man who had worked as a technician for Kodak for 15 years. After the factory closed, he lost his job, couldn't find a new one at the age of 50, and gradually got pushed out of the rental system. Currently, he lives in an old van parked near a gas station. He shared, "I used to have the key to a lab worth millions of dollars. Now, I only have the key to my own car." Rochester did not collapse due to natural disasters or crime, but because we have allowed too many people to disappear in silence. And when the community no longer has anyone to keep the fire alive, a city will fade away like a light bulb that hasn't been replaced. You may have never been to Rochester, but ask yourself, if a city as strong as Rochester can also disappear in silence, could that happen to the place where you live? Share your thoughts, because it is very possible that your voice is what Rochester has been waiting for too long. And Rochester is not the only place to fall silent. Just over a 2-hour drive away, there is another city. Still beautiful, still peaceful. But the people who once lived there are gradually disappearing from the postcard. That is Schenectady. When strolling through the historic district of Schenectady in the fall, you will see everything looking perfect. Rows of red-leaved trees, small roadside cafes, ancient stone steps. But if you stop and look closely, you will realize something unbelievable. The people who actually live here can no longer afford to live here. More than 40% of the homeless people in this city once had full-time jobs, in the hotel, service, and restaurant industries. They are not unemployed. They are not addicted. They just don't have enough money to rent a room, right in the place where they serve tourists every day. A woman in her 40s who used to work as a receptionist at a boutique hotel in the Old Quarter. She is not an addict, nor has she broken the law. It's simply that her salary doesn't keep up with the rent. She recounts, "I still wear my uniform, still greet customers with a smile. Then at night, I sleep in my car, right behind the parking lot where they never notice." Have you ever thought it would be fine if you were diligent and made no mistakes? Schenectady is proving the opposite. When rent prices double in just 4 years, but wages remain stagnant, the collapse is not loud, but comes bit by bit, quietly. Schenectady has now become a city for transients, no longer a place to live. The locals have to leave. The remaining people live in cars or temporary shelters. Schools are losing students. The community loses its torchbearers. And the city, despite being beautiful, is gradually becoming a ghost town with 2 layers of masks. One layer is Instagram check-in photos, and the other layer is people sleeping in their cars right after those photos. What do you think is the boundary between someone who has a roof over their head and someone who has to sleep in their car? Please share your thoughts, because who knows, it might be the only thing that keeps people together. Every year, over 9 million people flock to Niagara Falls to admire this magnificent natural wonder. But while tourists are busy taking selfies by the waterfall, just behind it, an entire city is disappearing. Niagara Falls, it sounds like a place that could never be poor. This city is located right next to one of the most famous tourist destinations in the world, with well-developed infrastructure and hotels popping up densely. However, 1 in 5 children in Niagara Falls are living in temporary shelters. Nearly 45% of the city's population lives below the poverty line. And the old neighborhoods, once home to a warm community, are now rows of shuttered shops, moss-covered buildings, and abandoned houses. A single mother in her early 30s, who used to work as a server at the resort, currently lives with her 2 young children in a temporary camp just over a mile from the waterfall. She shared, "I used to help hundreds of couples have their dream honeymoon here. But at night, I have to quietly lull my child to sleep under the makeshift roof. No one knows, and no one asks tourists take photos of the beautiful scenery. But the locals living in the photos are the part that no one wants to see. Local schools have to cut programs due to a lack of funding from resident taxes. Meanwhile, the police and medical staff have to take on additional duties to provide emergency support for the homeless. Petty crime, drug abuse, and depression are on the rise in the forgotten tourist areas. And the most heartbreaking thing is that although the city is still crowded, it is no longer a place where people live. Just a place where people stop by, spend money, and then leave. And those who truly live are trapped with no way out. Is it possible that what turns Niagara Falls looks like a stage? The front is sparkling with lights. The back is the dark backstage, where the invisible people still live, breathe, and struggle to survive. Have you ever been to Niagara Falls? If you have ever been there, did you know that just a few minutes away from where you stand, there are families who don't even have a bed to sleep on? Leave a comment, because who knows, your attention might be what this city has lost. But Niagara Falls is not the only city forgotten after the tourist lights. A few hours to the east, there is a place that was once hailed as a model of American resettlement. Many people who moved here once believed it was the promised land. But now, it has become the starting point of another escape. Let's explore the story of Utica right now. People call Utica the city with a humanitarian heart, a place that has embraced thousands of refugees from Syria, Congo, and Afghanistan over the past 20 years. But today, even that heart is gasping for breath. Many immigrant families who have only lived here for 2 to 3 years have been pushed out of their homes. They came here with the hope of a better life, with humanitarian resettlement policies, where the government, community, and non-profit organizations together build a new beginning for those who have lost everything. But then the housing support budget was suddenly cut. The rent nearly doubled after the pandemic. This has led to unstable jobs, limited language skills, and insufficient long-term support networks. A local statistic shows that nearly 1/4 of the homeless people in Utica are refugees who have immigrated within the past 5 years. The dream of a better life has now turned into a nightmare with no way out. A 52-year-old man of Syrian origin who used to be a chef in Damascus. After the war, he, along with his wife and 2 children, were brought to Utica with the hope of starting a new life. In the first 2 years, everything seemed stable. But when the temporary aid ended, work became unstable, and rent prices skyrocketed. His family was asked to leave their apartment. Currently, he and his wife and children are living in the basement of a local church. He shared, "I fled from the bombs. But here, I still have to lull my child to sleep in the cold, because there is no real roof over our heads." His story is a testament to the fact, you can escape from war, but it's hard to escape from abandonment. Utica shows a quiet yet alarming transformation. The city that was once the starting point of hope is now becoming the starting point of despair. Perhaps it is not the new instabilities and conflicts that make people lose their homes, but when the place called a safe haven has no room for them to exist long term. The American dream, for some people, does not shatter with deafening sounds, but with the gentle knock on the door of the landlord. If you can't pay rent next month, then move out. What do you think a true community should be measured by? Isn't it not about what they build, but how they keep the people who once believed in them? If you ever thought of America as the promised land, share your feelings after learning about the story in Utica. Leaving Utica, we come to a place that once represented opportunity, now a living testament to the silent betrayal of the system. That is Binghamton. Do you think a young person who just held their college diploma in their hands would end up sleeping in their car just a week after graduation? In Binghamton it happens, more than you think. Binghamton was once the pride of the New York State education system, home to one of the most prestigious public universities in the country. But today, right in the place that once educated thousands of engineers, teachers, and researchers, bachelor's tent cities have appeared. Local statistics show that the unemployment rate among the 22 to 30 age group in Binghamton has tripled since the pandemic. The average rent has increased by 42% over the past 4 years, making it unaffordable for recent graduates. This has left more than 1,500 former students of Binghamton University currently without stable housing. Many of them are still struggling to pay off their student loans. A 26-year-old young man who studied environmental engineering shared, "I have a GPA of 3.7 and have interned at 2 major companies. But after the pandemic, all job openings disappeared. I tried to hold on, but my savings ran out. Now I live in my car near the city bus station, right next to the old campus. Knowledge was once hope, but it cannot save you from a society that has no place for those who start from zero." In Binghamton at this time, the neighborhoods near the university are becoming increasingly empty. No more young families, no more students staying. Postgraduate services are almost non-existent. No job placement centers, no transitional housing. A generation of young people is quietly leaving the city, taking with them knowledge, energy, and shattered faith. Binghamton did not collapse due to a natural disaster. Perhaps it collapsed because the very people with potential were forced to leave. When a city cannot retain its recent graduates, what else can it hold on to? Perhaps the issue does not lie in education, but rather in the fact that society no longer has any support for young people after graduation. Did you ever believe that education would open new doors? Share your story, because who knows, such voices might help us reflect on what is truly needed for a city to continue existing. You just heard about 5 cities, each one a different slice of decay. One place was once the industrial heart, a place that is a symbol of resettlement, a place that teaches that as long as you study hard, everything will be fine. But in the end, they all share the same fate, being left behind by the system. And the most painful part is, those who fell were not because of laziness or mistakes, but simply because there was no longer a place for them. But the story doesn't stop here. In the next part, you will see cities that seem to be fine, still beautiful, still have tourism, still have residents. But inside, everything is gradually hollowing out day by day. Stay tuned. On one side are the luxurious riverside villas, where residents from Manhattan drive to for weekend getaways. On one side are long lines of makeshift tents along the Hudson River, where the indigenous people once lived their entire lives, now having to curl up in sleeping bags. This is Poughkeepsie, where you can see the afternoon sun shining on million-dollar rooftops while hearing the hoarse coughs of those who have no home to return to. In the past 5 years, housing prices in downtown Poughkeepsie have increased by more than 70%. More than 1/3 of the native residents have left or been forced out of their old homes. And the homeless set up camps by the river, most of whom were once residents of that very neighborhood. The streets are not empty, but those who once called it home are disappearing. Gentrification pushes low-income people to the margins, not just in terms of space, but also in terms of voice. Social tension is quietly increasing. Newcomers seeking experiences, old residents living in memories that no longer have a place. More significant is the disintegration of a community ecosystem. Family-run shops disappearing, schools losing students, and boarding houses turning into Airbnb rentals. Beneath the calm exterior, an emotional ghost town is gradually taking shape, where everything still appears to be functioning, but without any soul. Have you ever stood in the city you once loved and felt like a stranger? Poughkeepsie is not desolate, but the disappearance of the old residents, the silence when they left, is what is making this place emptier each day. What do you think makes the soul of a city? If you have time, write down a memory you once had in the place you call hometown. To remember that sometimes preserving memories is also a way to resist the petrification of society. Syracuse has long been known as an educational hub, not only because of its prestigious university, but also due to its strong library system, public schools, and community services. However, currently, more than 1/3 of the homeless people in Syracuse were once employees in education, libraries, or public services. A large number of houses around the school have been left vacant or converted into investor-owned properties. And housing support programs for civil servants have been nearly completely cut over the past 5 years. Even those who built the system were abandoned by the system. That might be the most silent betrayal, when those who once supported knowledge are pushed into the shadows of society. Now, the residential area around Syracuse University has become desolate. No more teachers, no more staff, only empty houses and silent shadows. The school is understaffed, quality is declining, and a new generation of students is growing up with the feeling that the adults are giving up. The elements that once constituted the soul of Syracuse are disappearing one by one. And a city not only loses its residents, but also loses its memories, its voice, and its trust. When those who teach, serve, and build the foundation for the community can no longer endure, what are we teaching the next generation? Syracuse is not lacking in knowledge, but it seems to lack a place for those who have brought knowledge to others. Did you ever learn from someone who inspired you? Leave a reminder of them, because who knows, somewhere they might need someone to remember that they were once an important part of this community. Right in the heart of New York State's power center, where policies, budgets, and laws are born, there are people sleeping on the sidewalks right at the foot of the legislative building. Welcome to Albany, where the government makes laws during the day and walks past the homeless every evening. Albany is witnessing the highest rate of homelessness growth in the state, nearly 38% in just 3 years. Nearly 20% of the homeless were once short-term contract office workers, service workers in public agencies, or government building employees. And a clear paradox, the state budget for 2024 is increasing, but housing support in Albany is being cut by 17%. A 58-year-old man who had worked as a contract security guard for the government building for 12 years. After the contract ended due to illness, he no longer qualified for housing assistance and did not have enough income to rent a new place. The authorities don't need to go far to see the crisis. It's right at the doorstep of their headquarters. In Albany, we are currently witnessing a series of residential areas around the center are gradually emptying as the original residents cannot cope with the cost of living. Community services are understaffed, not only due to budget constraints, but also because no one can afford to live where they work. And trust in the institution is eroded day by day, when those who once served the government are the first to be abandoned. A city with power, but lacking the will to retain the people who have supported it. What's wrong with people who used to work right next to the government having to set up tents at the foot of the legislative building? Perhaps Albany doesn't need more budget. It needs a new perspective on the value of people, before this city is left with only empty streets, with flags hanging in front of buildings that no longer have anyone inside. Did you ever believe that the government was the last bastion of support? Leave bare your thoughts, for perhaps the leaders themselves need estimations from those they once promised to serve. If you just take a quick glance, Troy seems to be doing very well. Winter charity campaigns, mobile blanket and pillow distribution trucks, churches open late at night for the homeless to stay temporarily. But when the lights dim down, and those people still have to return to the tent by the Hudson River, you will start to wonder, is everything we are doing really enough? Troy is known as a dynamic community in humanitarian efforts. Each year, more than 20 campaigns to aid the homeless are organized, from distributing food to donating warm clothing. The press praises community initiatives, and social media spreads images of philanthropy widely. But then, when everything was delved into, people realized that behind the glamorous facade was a forgotten truth. Troy only has 78 legal shelter beds for over 400 people without stable housing. More than 60% of the homeless here have to return to makeshift tents after each food distribution. And less than 5% of people in charitable programs find stable housing within 6 months. Buffalo, the snowy city characteristic of northern New York, was once an industrial pride, a bustling transportation hub, and rich in family-oriented culture. But now, Buffalo has the highest rate of homeless people over 60 in the entire state. During the winter months, many elderly people have to temporarily shelter in abandoned train stations, empty building basements, and even subway tunnels. A local report indicates that more than 43% of homeless seniors in Buffalo once had their own homes, but lost them due to illness, medical bankruptcy, or skyrocketing housing prices after the death of a loved one. A man in his 70s who used to be a public bus driver retired early after heart surgery. Unable to afford rent, he lived in an abandoned bus parked near a snow-covered field. If you ever thought that only young people wander the streets, take a look at the hunched backs in the white snow, whom society no longer names. The public nursing homes in Buffalo are overcrowded or lack sufficient maintenance funding. Housing subsidies for the elderly have been cut to balance the budget for priority development areas. And most importantly, the concept of cared for elderly is collapsing when those who once paid taxes, who worked their entire lives, are the ones left behind. Buffalo is not only cold in terms of weather, it is gradually becoming colder in spirit. A society is judged not only by how it treats its successful members, but also by how it treats its weakest ones. So, what message is Buffalo and America leaving for the elderly generation? If you ever thought you would have a place to rest in your old age, look at Buffalo today to ask the question, does this system really keep its promise to those who once held it up? Share your thoughts, because who knows, a warm voice amidst the white winter might be the only thing left to hold on to hope. When you pass through each city, from the desolate Rochester with its abandoned factories to the snowy Buffalo with the shadows of the homeless elderly, you will see one common thing: no war, no earthquakes. But the places that were once vibrant now lie desolate as if they never existed. 10 cities, 10 slices, but the same crack. Those who once had jobs, once lived stably, once contributed, now they quietly leave the map of life, without a sound, without a farewell. They did not disappear because they chose to. They disappear because no one sees them anymore. If a city can no longer retain its workers, if a place no longer has room for fresh graduates or retirees, then is it still a city or just a row of dead streets waiting to be painted over? We don't make this video to criticize. We do this to see more clearly, to listen more carefully, to ask questions that perhaps no one wants to answer yet. How many more people will disappear before we realize the city is not built from buildings, but from people? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't let these stories pass by in silence. Subscribe to the channel to continue accompanying genuine perspectives, slowly but without turning away. And if you find this video touching something deeper, send it to a friend. Who knows, that small thing might be the biggest thing someone needs. The content in the video is compiled from local reports, official statistics, and true stories published by the media. All information presented is for educational purposes, reflecting society and sparking discussion, not aimed at attacking individuals, organizations, or local authorities. All observations are independent and encourage viewers to self-assess and reflect. Thank you for completing this journey with us. See you in the next videos.